Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. We are going to go ahead and call our meeting to order. It's 6:04. Dr. Thomas, if you would conduct a roll call for us.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Davis.
Here.
Mr. Stevens.
Here.
Ms. Davis.
Here.
Dr. Yeager.
Here.
Dr. Dykeman.
Here.
Mr. Worthy.
Here.
Dr. Gant.
Here.
Dr. Knox.
Here.
Dr. Maddox.
Here.
Excuse me.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Thomas. We have a quorum. We are going to move forward with our silent meditation. Okay. Thank you. Moving forward with item number 3, to amend and or adopt the agenda. The floor is open.
I move that we adopt the agenda as written.
Second.
Okay,
Ms.
we have a
Palmer. Ms. Palmer has her hand up.
Yeah, we missed something.
We missed the recognition and awards at number 2.
Yep.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Let me back up, Mr. Pruitt. Thank you. I'm having trouble viewing the agenda. Thank you for whoever just made it larger. Mr. Pruitt, in this case, can we just go back to that particular item?
Yes, I'm sorry, I missed what you were talking about.
I skipped over item number 2, which is our.
Oh, sure, you can go back. That's fine.
Okay. Sorry about that. All right. Item number 2.
So I'm going to start. This is Beth Moore, and I am pleased to be here this evening to share with you a program that we have introduced this month, and that is our Employee of the Month program. Each month, this program will recognize and reward staff members for their service and dedication to our students and families of the Clark County School District. Parents, guardians, staff, students, and community members can nominate any employee. And this month, I would like you to join me in congratulating Miss Carla Williams, a kindergarten teacher at Cleveland Road Elementary School. I'm going to read to you one of the submission entries that was written by a CCSD parent. And she states, Miss Carla Williams goes above and beyond when it comes to her students. Without a doubt, she is the kindest, most caring person that I've encountered this far at the Clark County School District. My daughter was lucky to have her as a teacher. There are multiple times I've seen her demonstrate her kindness and love toward her students. One example sticks out the most. She hand-delivered gift baskets to every single one of her students just after the pandemic hit. My daughter saw her, and I had to hold her back from running out to hug her. My husband and I appreciated Mrs. Williams' patience and kindness when we had questions and concerns. My daughter still tells me how much she misses Miss Williams. She should serve as an example for all other teachers. When I reached out to Lindsay Chatham, the principal at Cleveland Road Elementary, she wrote a small statement about Miss Carla Williams. She said, I immediately knew it would be a difficult task. If I had to use a phrase to describe her, it would be servant leader. She consistently puts others before herself. She does everything in her power to support students, colleagues, and continuously seeks community partners to support our work at Cleveland Road. Along with her role as a classroom teacher, Ms. Williams serves on the PTO, school improvement team, and is a member of the LSGT. She is respected by her peers and loved by her students. We are blessed to have Ms. Williams as a member of the Cleveland Road Elementary family, and I feel honored to know her. I want to thank the Foundation for Excellence in Education and the Athens Area Chamber of Commerce for supporting this program. Each month, the Foundation for Excellence will provide a $200 award to the winner, and the local businesses that you see on your screen here are donating almost $1,000 in products and services every single month for our winner. Those businesses include the Avid Bookshop, Barbaritos, Bank South, Chastain Jenkins and Leathers, Classic City Cycling, Daily Groceries and Co-op, The Palmas, E&E Architecture, Edward Jones, Fitness at 5, Golden Pantry, Hawthorne Animal Hospital, Jittery Joe's, Lumberjacks, East Land and Investment, Quality Inn, Reblossom, Rush Trampoline, and Zebra Magazine. I will be providing all of the gifts and awards to Ms. Williams this week, but please join me in congratulating her for our first Employee of the Month.
That's awesome. Congratulations. Okay. Ms. Moore, does that conclude your presentation?
Yes, ma'am, it does. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. We will move forward with item number 3, which is to amend or adopt the agenda. Now the floor is open.
I again move to adopt the agenda as written.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Davis, a second by Dr. Maddox. Are there any questions or is there any further discussion? Dr. Thomas, if you would take roll for all in favor of adopting the agenda before us.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Stevens,
Yes.
Ms. Davis,
Yes.
Dr. Yeager,
Yes.
Dr. Dykeman,
Yes.
Mr. Worthy,
Yes.
Dr. Gant,
Yes.
Dr. Knox,
Yes.
and Dr. Maddox.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so that motion carries and our agenda will continue as printed. We'll move forward with item number 4, which is public comment. I will be reading a few of our letters and Dr. Dykeman will read the remaining letters. Okay. The first letter is from Amy Bramlett, and it reads, "Dear Dr. Thomas and members of the board, I'd like to urge you to provide portable HEPA air purifiers for each classroom. They are proven to mitigate aerosolized particles containing viruses within the classroom and should be part of a comprehensive plan to protect all staff and students from COVID-19. I've heard that a few parents are purchasing these for their children's classrooms. This isn't possible for most classrooms in the district, further adding to the district-wide inequities you are trying so hard to address. Why should some children be denied a simple safety measure due to economic circumstances? Each teacher and child deserves the most protection we can give them, not just the kids from higher income neighborhoods. We will be needing these machines at least for the remainder of the year and even next year, as there are no assurances about when we will get a vaccine. Moving forward, they could be helpful for our students who suffer from allergies and asthma. The district has good HVAC protective systems in place, but there is nothing to deal with particles within a classroom before they get cycled through the HVAC. Let's not expose a large part of our community to greater danger and add to existing inequities. It's just not fair. Thank you, son, Amy Bramlett, parent of CCSC 4th grader. Okay. Our next letter reads, "Dear Dr. Thomas and the board," and it's from Kerry Coker Bishop. "Thank you for all of your work during a very difficult school year. I'm writing with serious concerns about the air in all of our schools, specifically the amount of clean air being supplied to the classrooms. I urge the district to purchase air purifiers for every classroom in the district. I understand that improvements have been made and are in progress to purify the air supply in the HVAC systems. This is excellent, but these changes do not address increasing the amount of clean air being supplied to the classrooms. This increase of clean air can be provided by air purifiers. Clean air in the classrooms is extremely important. Students and teachers are eating breakfast and lunch in their classrooms with masks off, which is overwhelmingly seen as high-risk behavior by public health entities, including the CDC. Additionally, some schools are allowing students to take mask breaks inside of the classroom. If the district is asking teachers and students to come into CCSD buildings and risk exposure to a potentially deadly virus, they deserve to be provided with the safest environment you can provide. We have already seen one of our elementary schools return to virtual due to staff shortages, and Clark County's and Georgia's COVID numbers are only getting worse. As a district, you have told us that safety is of the utmost importance and that you are doing everything you can to mitigate risk. If we must be in person, please move forward with purchasing air purifiers that protect the health of the students and staff of CCSD. Thank you, Kerry Bishop, CCSD parent. And there's a sentence that says to decrease the risk of the virus transmission during meals, the CCSD must increase the amount of clean air being supplied to classrooms. Okay. Our next letter is from Kathy Rumfeld, and it reads, Dear Dr. Thomas and board, thank you for all of your work for the students of Athens, Clark County. I'm writing with concerns about the COVID numbers in Athens, Clark County, and to ask for a metric outlining what will cause CCSD to return to virtual. I understand that many factors are considered when making a decision about closing schools, and that the level of community spread is not the only factor. What other factors are being taken into consideration? According to the most recent county indicator report from Georgia Department of Public Health, Clark County is an emerging county of interest, which means that our numbers increased last week by at least 5%. Additionally, as of today, November 12th, Clark County's current 14-day confirmed case rate is at 257 per 100,000, which is much higher than our original metric of 175 cases per 100,000. How much higher do our numbers need to go? I write also out of concern for our teachers. According to the CCSD calendar, this evening's board meeting is still virtual. One school board member recently stated, we have a number of school board members who have serious health concerns and simply cannot meet in person while there is a threat of COVID. That means a hybrid meeting would be required. At this point in time, our board meetings need to be efficient and focused. A hybrid would make it harder for some board members to participate fully. That is neither equitable or high functioning. How is hybrid school then equitable? Don't our staff and students deserve the same flexibility and protection given to our school board? Many teachers do not have a choice if they want to continue to support their families with their jobs. They are required to be in school buildings or small classrooms for hours. While there is no way to eliminate all risk, is the current amount of risk to the lives of our staff and students worth it? Thank you, Kathy Rumfeld, CCSD parent. All right, our next letter is from Janet Frick, and it reads, Dear school board members and CCSD leaders, I'm writing today to advocate as strongly as possible that our reopening plans and ongoing staffing adjustments need to prioritize our obligation to provide services to children with physical and learning disabilities, particularly the ones who need remote services. We all understand that there are myriad challenges with K-8 facilities and staffing right now. CCSD has kids who are not getting their needs met in a virtual format, including kids who have legally mandated educational and therapeutic accommodations. CCSD also has kids who are not getting their needs met in a face-to-face format, including kids who have legally mandated educational and therapeutic accommodations. Some medically fragile kids cannot attend in person, or their parents consider the risk too great. Also, we will occasionally have to shut down the face-to-face format due to quarantine. School districts are short-staffed everywhere, in particular for SPED teachers. There probably aren't any answers that will provide the optimal or even the baseline educational environment to all students right now. So given that, school districts have to decide how to prioritize their limited resources and their limited personnel. I propose that we should make the following commitments. We need to set aside some dedicated staff who are firmly assigned to home visits, SPED work with the vulnerable students who are unable to attend in person. We should assume that some segment of our school population won't be able to attend in person until the pandemic is under control. And so we need to have dedicated staff whose only job is to work with the most vulnerable kids and the ones most in danger of falling behind. For example, reading specialists who could go into communities and do reading check-ins with kids who are struggling with the online format, therapists who can do home visits with the most at-risk kids. SPED teachers and paras should not be assigned to the general subpopulation unless and until all SPED kids are having the needs in their IEPs fully met. Our district talks a lot, and rightly so, about its commitment to racial justice. We need to show the same commitment to disability justice. Sincerely, Janet Frick, parent of a Cedar Shoals sophomore. Okay. The next letter is from Kendra Klein, and it reads, "Good evening, CCSD School Board. I am the parent of a disabled child who is eligible to receive special education services. For months, I have watched board meetings, read communications from the district, and tried to stay up to date with the details around reopening. And I have been continually disappointed that there is rarely, if ever, any time spent discussing the needs of special education students. Earlier this summer, a 6-hour board meeting was dedicated to discussing reopening plans. I watched the entire thing, and when it was over, I sat on my couch and I cried because in those 6 hours, not a single person brought up special education students or the impact of the coronavirus pandemic on their health, well-being, and ability to access education. Because of my son's age 3.5 and his particular disabilities, virtual learning is mostly inaccessible to him, though his teacher, paraprofessionals, and related service providers did their best to adapt material and provide whatever support they could. For a short while, my son was even able to receive in-person therapy services on his school's empty playground. But then district administration decided to abandon their phase-in plan, updated on the district website on 8/21/20, that set metrics for returning to in-person learning, including prioritizing the youngest learners and those receiving special education services. As you already know, the transition to resuming in-person learning was chaotic, disorganized, and opaque. We didn't even know who our son's teacher would be until days before reopening. In the end, we felt we had no option but to withdraw our son from the school district because it was clear the district was not capable of providing him free and appropriate education as mandated by DEA. While the decision was a difficult one, as I have watched the reopening unfold in real time, I do not regret my choice. I've heard that special ed teachers and paraprofessionals are being pulled from their assignments to cover classrooms because of sub shortages. Fowler Drive Elementary is closing on Friday after being open for a week. Photos on social media posted by individuals and schools themselves show children in crowded groups waiting for the bus and with their masks off inside the building. It is blatantly obvious that Clark County School District is incapable of providing a safe education to medically fragile children. For a school district that claims to have a commitment to equity, you have not provided equity for disabled children. Thank you, Kendra Klein. Okay, that concludes my letters. Dr. Dykeman.
Okay. This first letter is from Maria Deroche. Dear Clark County Board of Education, I'm writing to encourage the board to consider adding portable air purifiers in all of our county schools. As we all know, CCSD is following guidelines for social distancing and contact tracing based upon the within 6 feet for 15 minutes criteria and the fact that droplets fall out of the air within 6 feet. But now that we have a better understanding of the survival of the COVID virus in its airborne state, we must grapple with the risks of COVID aerosol transmission. Aerosols travel differently than droplets, functioning more like smoke, moving randomly throughout a room, and thus transmission of COVID can occur between people who are more than 6 feet apart. Given COVID is airborne, it's vital we do all we can to renew the air through increased ventilation. The addition of portable air purifiers would be of great help, as they have been shown to be very efficient in diluting the concentration of airborne contaminants. Installing standalone air purifiers in addition to HVAC systems would supplement the amount of clean air coming into rooms and help to mitigate COVID aerosols. Thank you for your time and consideration. Sincerely, Maria Deroche, mother of a CCSD 7th grader and 9th grader. The next letter is from Melanie Rieber. The science of how COVID is spread is finally coming into focus. Initially, the world thought it was through touch, and we all remember the wash your hands campaigns of the early pandemic. However, as scientists and public health experts have learned more about the virus, it is clear that it is predominantly spread through aerosols. These are a specific class of particles, notably different from droplets we might sneeze out on the person next to us, that spread throughout the air. To get ahead of the virus, CCSD needs to follow the science on how to stop the spread of aerosols specifically. This means improving air cleaning and replacement in classrooms. Experts say we should aim for at least 5 complete air replacements per hour in a room, in addition to mask wearing. CCSD classrooms have only 3 complete air replacements per hour. The students also eat in the classrooms and occupy the space for hours at a time. This is a dangerous situation. Portable HEPA filters are shown to effectively remove the coronavirus from the air and are more cost-effective than improving the building HVAC systems. The science behind HEPA filtration and COVID transmission through aerosols is documented in scientific journals and covered by the popular press. A Google search will get you started. I therefore strongly request that CCSD put portable HEPA filters in all classrooms to clean the air and help stop the spread of COVID. Thank you, Melanie Rieber, parent of CCSD student. The next letter is from Patricia Richards. Dear Superintendent Thomas and members of the board, I've written privately to the superintendent and others encouraging the district to purchase portable air purifiers for all classrooms. The science is clear that these machines provide the HEPA filtration needed to capture viral particles and protect our students, teachers, and administrators. In the interest of equity, I'm writing tonight to reiterate the importance of this being a district-wide initiative. Although parents at some schools will surely offer to purchase purifiers for their children's classrooms or even raise funds to cover all classrooms at their school, this is not a viable possibility throughout the district. All the kids, teachers, and administrators in CCSD deserve work and learning spaces that are as safe as possible. Portable air purifiers are essential to make this happen. With thanks for your consideration, Patricia Richards, mother of 2 CCSD elementary students. The next letter is from Rebecca Marshall. I appreciate all that the district is doing to protect our children and our amazing teachers. However, there is more that will ensure their safety. This virus is spread through aerosol. It is in the air and is not blocked efficiently by plexiglass. The EPA suggests that schools use portable air filters to supplement increased HVAC system ventilation and filtration, especially in areas where adequate ventilation is difficult to achieve. And then there's a website for an EPA site. My elementary school child is in a classroom with 19 kids. I'm worried that 7 hours together is too much. Please add portable air purifiers to the list of safety precautions as soon as possible. I'm scared for their safety. Rebecca Marshall. The next letter is from Sarah Emery. Greetings, members of the CCSD School Board. I'm commenting today as a community member and a homeowner. While I do not have children, I have vested interest in the equality and safety of education for our entire community. I also happen to have a bachelor's degree in education. It goes without saying that this year has presented challenges nationwide that our drastically underfunded and undersupported public education system has had to move mountains to attempt to overcome. However, I have several questions regarding CCSD's approach to reopening. Why have the metrics outlined in August been abandoned, for example, in the midst of an ever-growing crisis that is worse now than it was in August or March? Why are special needs and medically fragile students being offered accommodations that fall far short of the accommodations for other students? Why is CCSD not prioritizing the health and safety and educational needs of the most vulnerable students, and by extension, staff? And lastly, why are students allowed to take off their masks at their desks? We know and have known for some time that this virus is airborne, and shields provide little to no protection in an enclosed classroom setting. This isn't an opinion, it's just reality. I was heartbroken to see photos of students posted on CCSD's social media accounts with multiple students all within 6 feet of each other and indoors without masks on. This seems like proof that CCSD is not taking this virus seriously and is still trying to forge ahead with hygiene theatrics, despite the fact that the viral spread is worse now than it has been all year. CCSD has a responsibility for every student's safety and education, and by extension, every member of each student's household. I hope that CCSD will take decisive action to prioritize the health and safety of our students and take proactive steps to provide appropriate and student-centered accommodations to all students as they are entitled to per FAPE, as in educational accommodations for students with disabilities that are designed with intention to meet their individual needs to the same extent that the needs of non-disabled students are met. This is a right these students have that is guaranteed by the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. While I'm appreciative of the overall gravity of the situation and how difficult this year has been and how wonderful individual teachers are, CCSD is currently failing to meet the needs of all of its students, and I call upon the board tonight to take bold, brave, and decisive action to ensure that the needs of all students, and I mean all students, are being met. This is the baseline job of the CCSD and is one that should not require parents and community members who are not experts in education to appeal to the school board in a public forum to perform. Thank you for reading these comments and taking time to consider the needs of all of our students here in Athens-Clarke County. Sarah Emery. And the last letter is from Vicki McMagan. Good evening, and thank you to the CCSD Board of Education members, district leadership, building administrators, and most of all, our beloved CCSD teachers for their tireless work during this unprecedented time. As a parent of 2 CCSD students and the spouse of a public school teacher, I am writing today to request that the CCSD install adequately sized, standalone, portable Hepa Air Purifiers in all CCSD classrooms as soon as possible. COVID is primarily spread through respiratory droplets, both larger droplets that fall out of the air within 6 feet of the infected person, and smaller droplets and particles which remain airborne for minutes or even hours. These smaller aerosols are of particular concern when people are inside together for extended periods of time in enclosed spaces like classrooms. As COVID-19 cases rise across the country, our state, and in our community, CCSD must do everything within its power to protect our students and staff. This includes ensuring that our classrooms receive the highest volume of fresh air possible. At best, our school HVAC systems can provide our classrooms with 3 fresh air changes per hour. Public health researchers at Harvard, Yale, the University of Colorado, the University of Maryland, and others have stressed that this is not adequate during the pandemic. Air purifiers will work together with existing HVAC systems to provide the recommended 5 air changes per hour. Public health departments in many other states, including Minnesota, Washington, Rhode Island, and Alaska, have issued guidance suggesting the use of air purifiers in school. Georgia has not provided such guidance, but CCSD should not wait for Georgia to issue this guidance, COVID is aerosolized, and we need to do everything we can to reduce the aerosols in our schools. Every CCSD classroom deserves the additional fresh air provided by air purifiers, especially since our students are eating in their classrooms twice a day. But of particular concern are band classrooms. Band directors across the country have been grappling with how to protect themselves and their students from the virus. The Performing Arts Aerosol Study, which is being conducted by an international coalition co-chaired by the College Band Directors National Association and the National Federation of State High School Associations, is a great source of targeted research on mitigating the spread of aerosols from brass and woodwind instruments. While the study offers a number of recommendations, not the least of which is to restrict playing of instruments to the outdoors, the researchers are clear that if you are going to play instruments indoors, you must increase the ventilation in those classrooms beyond what is possible through standard HVAC systems. In addition to many other mitigation strategies, including spacing, masking the players and the instruments, and limiting the duration of playing, they recommend adding portable air purifiers, and likely multiple units, to band classrooms to ensure that the classroom air is changed with the frequency required to clear the aerosols generated from playing brass and woodwind instruments. Experts are encouraging the addition of portable air purifiers to classrooms. I encourage CCSD to invest in this mitigation strategy to protect our teachers, our students, their families, and our community. Thank you for your service to our community. Vicki McMakin, CCSD parent. That is the last one.
Thank you, Dr. Dyckman. All right, and thank you to those that submitted public comments. We will move forward with our Board of Education committee reports. We'll start with 5-1, which is our Government Relations Committee. Just as a reminder, if we could keep our reports brief to 2 minutes or less. And certainly if there's any additional information you would like to upload under the reports, you're more than welcome to do so. Mr. Davis?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Gant. I did post the notes as I remembered them, and so they're there for your viewing. We had at our last meeting, we did focus on COVID-19, particularly looking at January. We had Professor Adams from UGA's Office of Outreach and Engagement there to kind of present an overview of the COVID. We had Athens Technical College President, Dr. Daniel, there to talk about steps that they have taken ever since the spring to protect their students and staff. And then we also had Commissioner Russell Edwards speak about a particular new measurement of COVID in the community coming out of wastewater. So anyway, those are there for your benefit. I was going to ask Dr. Yeager who was also at the meeting and took notes, if she had any additions.
No, I would just only add that Grace Bigwell-Adams made a very eloquent statement, I thought, about why we needed to get kids back into the building despite the COVID pandemic. And so I would encourage folks to tune in and listen to that 5 or 10 minutes of her discussion about our community needs.
That's the end of my report.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move forward with our Finance Committee.
Yes, as we know that Mr. Schumerman gave a financial report last Thursday night at our work session. And I believe that I've already announced to you that we agreed to have the Finance Committee meetings the fourth Thursdays in each month. And of course, that would be posted on the calendar.
Okay, all right. Does that conclude your report, Mr. Worthy?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Policy Committee, Dr. Yeager.
Thank you, Dr. Gant. We've been pretty busy. We met again twice this month. We have 45 new policies for that we recommend for putting up for public comment this month. We also have the 35 that we recommended last month, for which we have received no public input. So I would recommend that we push those through tonight. I'd like to add the last 15 of the L&M policies, if I could, to the December 1st called meeting to see if we can get them at least put up for public comment before the cognitive visit, which will give us a big heft of lots of the policy reviews. And the worst and the oldest and the worst policies have all been reviewed. We still have the I and the J policies to get through, and that's been harder because of staff demands given the return. But I think we can present COVID with a very what's the word, adequate response to their directive.
Okay, thank you. Does that conclude your report, Dr. Yeager?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, and we'll move forward with Property Committee. Mr. Worthy?
Yes, the Property Committee, I don't have anything to report on tonight.
Okay, thank you. We'll move forward with item number 6, which is the Board President's Report. I just added, I have a few notes under the document that I shared a couple of months ago. One is just a reminder about our special call meeting on December 1st. Also a reminder that our next training is on the 19th, and that will be focused on team building. That training will be led by GSBA. However, as we move forward and plan for our retreat, we hope to be able to incorporate some of the individuals and or the individuals that you all have shared as it relates to team building and any other areas that we think will be useful for us as a governance team, but also that will just be helpful in like building our capacity and adding to our information about particular topics of interest for the district. The last reminder is just encouragement to go back through the self-assessment inside of the GSBA platform. If there were any questions, I haven't received any questions or recommended changes, but again, if there are any, please let me know. I do have to go make a couple of changes on my end under the column of who's responsible for what, and that's just after GSBA feedback. And so some of the things committee chairs need to be responsible for, the superintendent needs to be responsible for, and things like that, or the whole board. And so once we're done with this document, it'll be considered our official results. So again, if you have any feedback, please share that with me. That is it for my report. Again, those that information can be found in the document, the Google document that I shared a couple of months ago. I will move forward with the superintendent's report. Dr. Thomas.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Gant. And I will be brief tonight as well. I thank those who have sent comments in tonight, as well as those who have emailed us with comments, suggestions, and feedback regarding our reopening. I will say that we are very appreciative of the hard work of our teachers, leaders, and all of our support staff who have helped to contribute to what we consider a successful reopening. It has taken a lot of work and planning on the front end, but that work on behalf of our principals and district staff has really paid off, in our opinion, this week. We've only had 2 cases of students who have been identified as positive within our school buildings, and 2 positive cases out of 6,725 students who have returned to in-person. So it has worked out to be about 0.03% of our students who have had positive cases since we returned. Overall, in the 4 days we've been back, we've had 58 reports filled out on students. And again, of those 58 reports, only 2 of those tested as positives. And the rest have been close contacts from within the community. We've had 32 employee reports filled out this week, and 0 of those came back with any positive cases. Most of the close contacts that have taken place have been from within the community, absent one issue within a school building. The others have majority been due to community contacts that those individuals had away from school. When we've spoken to our district staff and principals, they have reported and been very pleased that they're seeing improvements daily in our transportation, school nutrition, and it's just things that you would normally expect on a first week of school, timing of buses, getting car rider, logistics worked out, students being accustomed to new procedures in the cafeteria that have been implemented to ensure safe distancing. So those processes are becoming more familiar for our students, and they are doing much better as each day goes on with implementing and responding to what's being asked of them. Today, we had 3,909 breakfast meals served, 5,584 lunch meals served, and almost 400 meals served on curbside. That was 200 pickups, but that was a breakfast and lunch together. We had 4,300 students transported on our school buses on yesterday. One area, two things I really wanted to clarify. One is, as you all have heard us say repeatedly, Mr. Mark Bailey and his team have been working diligently to install air purifier devices on our HVAC units. I know that that continues to be an area of concern for our community, and that is something that Mr. Fisher and Mr. Bailey and I will discuss and continue to explore what we have available, what that air quality is like, and what other steps we can take to help to strengthen our safety precautions for students. The other area that I wanted to share is that I know you all have received some questions and concerns about communication or the perceived lack thereof. And I just want to be clear that we are following the processes that we established, and those processes have worked very well, sometimes resulting in our staff working like last night to 7 or 8 o'clock at night. But our process is that if there is a positive case, we will notify the classroom of those students impacted. And even if there is an assumption of a COVID exposure, we will notify the classroom of those impacted. And then we will notify with a different level, the school community, with a general communication if there's a case in their school building. And then we will have a weekly update of all of our cases on our district website. The process that we've established worked very well yesterday at the one school that has had the positive cases. Contact tracing was completed in a very timely manner. Parents were notified. And due to mitigation and the hard work of our teachers and students, I have to compliment our students. One of those two classes did not even have to be quarantined because after an investigation, it was determined that students were not within a proximity of each other that required a quarantine. So our teachers and students have been very diligent. And I've heard tonight that there are some pictures out there, and I think we all know there are always going to be exceptions, but I do not want to minimize the extraordinary work and effort that has gone on in all of our schools because of our school leadership and the commitment of our teachers. All of our cabinet has been out this week and will continue to be out tomorrow, visiting schools, meeting with principals. And what we have seen has been heartwarming, but also affirming in terms of safety practices that our students and staff are engaged in. So I do not minimize what others have seen or what's been reported, but I also cannot minimize the vast majority of our students and staff who are doing everything we have asked them to do to ensure not only their safety, but the safety of their friends and their colleagues. So we appreciate our teachers, we appreciate the students, we appreciate parents who are talking to your children at home about safety practices. We are very appreciative of our leaders and all of our support staff. We've had district staff working at schools this week. When you all hear those numbers, please keep in mind as a board that we also have a group of tier 1 and tier 2 teachers, and I've shared this in my communication with you, who never returned back to face-to-face. So when there are absences, that also has to be considered in those numbers and what we're having to adjust to in the way of staffing. But overall, it has been a very successful first 4 days. Again, 2 cases out of over 6,000 students, almost 7,000 students, has been a success. And it's not perfect. And there are things every day. We meet twice a day, 10 o'clock in the morning and about 4:30 every afternoon, to debrief what has taken place, to see what changes we need to make, what improvements we can make. And we will continue to do that because we are committed to the safety of our students and our staff, as well as committed to strong instructional practices. I've seen some simultaneous instruction and students and teachers working well together. I've had parents calling saying, goodness, my children are seeing their friends in at school. Now they want to be back. It looks like this is working well. So frequently you all unfortunately only get to hear the negatives. So I do want to take advantage of sharing many of the positive comments that we have received about our return, and just know that we are committed to addressing areas that need to be improved, and will continue to be diligent about that work. That concludes my report, and thank you, Dr. Gann.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas. I think let me see, I'm changing my view, but I think there were a couple of questions for you, and I was actually trying to manage another device. I'm splitting 2 devices, but were those questions answered, Dr. Thomas, or individuals that had questions?
So I have 2 short questions I think that I've exchanged with Dr. Thomas about an email that I would love her to address here in front of the public, which is whether there is a mask mandate for staff within the buildings and how that's being handled. And the other question was about the story we heard in the letters, but I've also heard earlier about special ed teachers being redirected. If you don't mind, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Gaskins, I'm going to answer the first one, and then I will allow you, just so I want them to have an accurate response. Teachers and staff and students are expected to wear masks every day. You shared some concerns with me. That's a personnel issue, but it has been addressed through our principal supervisors. But the expectation is that every school teacher, every school leader, every school staff person, every student wear a mask every day and wear that mask appropriately. When I was in buildings today, I observed building leaders, just reminding people if they had them on and they had even slipped down, make sure you pull that mask up. And I don't think that was done as a show for me, because I heard someone laugh and say, I know it keeps slipping down. I'm sorry, I'm gonna need to get a tighter mask, whatever. So that is the expectation, and we'll continue to be the expectation for being back in school. But we have addressed that issue, and am confident that we will continue to monitor that. I saw that Gallagher. You're very welcome. And Mr. Gaskins will answer that other question, because I think I know the answer, but there may be some caveats that aren't 100% correct. And we've talked today about working on not speaking if you can't be confident in everything you say, because it gets definitely presented as fact, and that's important that we're presenting factual information. Mr. Davis, I see you asked. I'm about to turn it over to you, Mr. Gaskins. The frequency of air exchange, that's not something I can answer for you just on the spot, because I want that to be correct. We have had that information provided in some of the material and the links that I shared, but we will work with Mr. Fisher. Mr. Fisher, if you can make note of that question and get that information to the entire board from Mr. Bailey, I would appreciate it. And I think Mr. Gaskins answered the subpay, so I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Gaskins, about special education services.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas. So I would say that I have not received those same concerns to my office, and to my knowledge, Ms. Hill has not received those same concerns. if there are concerns, I would ask the community to please contact the school's principal or contact Ms. Heidi Hill, who is our ED of special education, or me, because first we want to be in service to our kids. So if our students have exceptionalities, we first want to meet those exceptionalities, and we are compliant to the law. So we take it very seriously to support that student's IEP. So if there are concerns where I think the letters said that special education teachers are being reassigned based on whatever those various reasons are, that is not in alignment with what we support as a district. And we would need to know specifically what school that is so we can address that. And if a parent is listening and you have any concerns, if your child is receiving support in their IEP, then you can contact the case manager for your child or the principal, or again, Ms. Heidi Hill or myself. We will address those. But to date, I have not received any emails from parents, and I've met with Ms. Heidi Hill extensively this week, because we do have some cases where classes where special education teachers taught, they were absent for various reasons. And Ms. Hill has actually deployed her staff to make sure that those students received support and that we met their goals of their IEPs. And I'm sorry, that is a motorcycle at the late night at my house. That's that background noise. I apologize.
And Mr. Gaskins, I don't want to speak out of turn. I know personally of one case where a teacher was reassigned to another building, but they were not reassigned to cover a random class. It was a special ed for special ed, where there was another student with an IEP need. And in an effort to be responsive to some of the unique needs that some of our students with special needs have, there are some people who have some unique skill sets that sometimes are needed to help support those students. So in full transparency, I am aware of one shift that has been made. And I understand that those individuals aren't happy about that. I've heard that you have your children, you're committed to your children, you want to serve your children, and not in a selfish way, right? That we all have our kids and we know what our kids need, and we don't want to pull away from our kids. And I don't want to say to serve other children, but because that sounds mean, but not in that way. But you want to make sure that the children you are primarily responsible for are getting what they need. And in this particular instance, I think that there were some exceptions or some extraordinary circumstances where there were staffing issues. And I know of one individual that was moved just during this, I think, 2-week period of time. And Mr. Gaskins, you can correct me, but it was not that we were taking a special ed teacher and saying, go teach a 3rd grade class. It was a special ed teacher with a unique skill set that had been asked to go help in another location.
That's correct, Dr. Thomas. We met with a high school team, and because high school is hybrid, Ms. Heidi Hill met with that entire department, and the teacher that we reassigned, that teacher will begin on Friday and cover that class for a week, actually volunteered to take over that class until the regular teacher would be back to serve those students.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas. Does that conclude your report?
Yes, ma'am.
May I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
So I am glad that you said, and I think it's important to highlight that the pictures maybe that people have seen on social media or seen through another means are the exceptions rather than the rule to maybe mask wearing or not mask wearing or not physical distancing. So I guess my question is, if people become aware of these things, what is the best thing for them to do, or who is the best person for them to contact to try to remedy that without making it into a like a social media post or something? What
Right.
would be the recommended course of action?
To reach out to that building principal. And with many of these questions and concerns, I encourage people to please reach out to the school principals. They are there. They're equally concerned about their buildings, the safety of their students, their staff, and themselves. And our principals are working diligently to do what is needed. So it is important, imperative, honestly, because that's where the change happens, is that they reach out to those principals and share those concerns. So thank you for asking that, Dr. Dykeman. That does conclude my report, Dr. Gant.
Okay, thank you. We'll move forward with the financial reports, and these were already presented to us, Mr. Schoeneman and Dr. Thomas. I'm not sure if there are any small updates, but I'm going to turn the floor over to you all for a recommendation.
Mr. Schoeneman, do you have any changes or any updates to the finance reports based on what was presented last week?
No, ma'am. Just overall, we're still in a safe place, and I've got no reason to believe at this point that we're going to deviate from our financial plan that we set forth in our budget. So overall, a safe place, and nothing's changed.
I'm sorry, Mr. Schumann, you were, there was like an echo or something, and I didn't understand what you said. Could you repeat? I heard the word deviate.
That's not a good word. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, much better.
Okay, I was just going to reiterate that we're in a safe place, and I've got no reason to believe that we're going to deviate from our financial plan, our fiscal year 21 budget.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is it your recommendation for us to accept
Yes,
all of these?
recommendation that the financial reports be accepted as presented.
Okay, so the floor is open for a motion to accept the financial reports.
I so move.
Okay, and Ms. Davis, is your motion for both 8.1, 8.2, and 8.3?
Yes, for all three reports.
Okay, so motion was made by Ms. Davis.
I'll second.
Okay, and Dr. Yeager for second. Any follow-up questions? Okay, Dr. Thomas, if you would take roll for all of those in favor of approving the financial reports. You're on mute, Dr. Thomas.
Thank you, I apologize. Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Dr. Yeager?
Yes.
Dr. Dykeman?
Yes.
Mr. Worthy? Mr. Worthy?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes.
That's okay. Thank you, sir. Dr. Gant?
Yes.
Dr. Knox?
Yes.
Dr. Maddox?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We'll move forward with number 9, and these are our policies to be posted for public comment. I'm going to open the floor for a motion first, and then just check in with Dr. Yeager just to be sure. But the floor is open for a motion.
I move that policy 1 through 45 be posted for under 9.1, posted for 4 weeks for public comment.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Davis, a second by Dr. Maddox. Dr. Yeager, any updates that we haven't already discussed?
I think we covered most of the issues during the work session, but I'm happy to entertain if there's any questions.
All right. Okay, Dr. Thomas, if you would take roll for all of those in favor of these being posted for public comments.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Dr. Yeager,
Yes.
Dr. Dykeman,
Yes.
Mr. Worthy,
Yes.
Dr. Gant,
Yes.
Dr. Knox,
Yes.
Dr. Maddox.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So those will be posted, that motion passes. Those will be posted for public comment. We'll move forward to item number 10, and these are the policies to either be adopted, rescinded, revised, or reviewed, excuse me. The floor is open for a motion.
I make the motion that under 11, under 10.1, that policy numbers 1 through 35 be adopted.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Davis.
Second.
Second by Dr. Maddox. Dr. Yeager, anyone else for any brief changes or points of discussion?
Yeah, there were no public comments on any of these.
Okay, all right. Okay, Dr. Thomas, if you would take roll for those in favor of the policies listed under 10.1 to either be adopted, rescinded, revised, or reviewed.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Stevens,
Yes.
Miss Davis,
Yes.
Dr. Yeager,
Yes.
Dr. Dykeman,
Yes.
Mr. Worthy,
Yes.
Dr. Knox,
Yes.
Dr. Maddox.
Yes.
Dr. Thomas, I can't remember if you called my name or if I said yes and I'm forgetting.
No.
I'm sorry,
Just
Dr.
in
Gant.
case.
Yeah.
Dr. Gant.
That's okay. Like anytime I look away, I forget, lose
I
track.
don't know
But yes,
either. I honestly don't remember either.
Dr. Thomas, you did not call her name because
Thank you.
I came one early, but I think we can rectify that.
All right, Dr. Gant.
yes.
All right, thank you. I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to be sure I wasn't, like a misunderstanding. All right, we'll move forward with our personnel recommendations. Dr. Thomas?
Yes, it is my recommendation that the personnel list as presented last week be accepted.
I so move.
Second.
Okay, we have, I think I heard Ms. Davis for the motion to accept the personnel recommendations and Mr. Worthy for a second.
Yes, I did.
Okay. Any discussion? All right. Dr. Thomas, if you would take roll for us.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Stevens,
Yes.
Miss Davis,
Yes.
Dr. Yeager,
Sorry, yes.
it's okay, Dr. Dykeman,
Yes.
Mr. Worthy,
Yes.
Dr. Gant,
Yes.
Dr. Knox,
Yes.
and Dr. Maddox.
Yes.
Okay. We'll move forward with our consent agenda. We've had a chance to discuss these items. We pulled off a couple of items, and so I'm going to open the floor for a motion to adopt our consent agenda, items 12.1 through 12.8.
I move that we adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Worthy made a motion, Mr. Davis is second. All right, all of those, I'm sorry, Dr. Thomas, if you would take roll of all of those in favor of
Yes, ma'am.
adopting our consent agenda.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Stevens,
Yes.
Miss Davis,
Yes.
Dr. Yeager,
Yes.
Dr. Dykeman,
Yes.
Mr. Worthy,
Yes.
Dr. Gant,
Yes.
Dr. Knox,
Yes.
and Dr. Maddox.
Yes.
Okay, so those items have been adopted. Moving on to number 13. Item 13.1, which is the action to approve our norms for board meetings, stakeholder concerns, and communication. I think everyone has a copy of the norms. Dr. Dykeman, I know there was communication a little bit earlier. Were there any other updates added or suggestions?
I can double check. I mean, everybody was making their suggestions right on that Google Docs.
Mm-hmm.
So if I could just mention that the red highlighted sentence on the communication one, we've dealt with that and it didn't get deleted. So that red sentence would probably get deleted. I'm sorry, I didn't do that before tonight. The part about KBCA, which we've dealt with.
So I can make changes on these as we discuss them, and then I can send the final version to Lisa. So everything you're saying, that red sentence can be deleted, and then everything below it is fine under media.
I'm not sure I understand the question. We've taken care of KBCA, is that right? Or did I say that right? Yeah, KBCA.
Yes.
And that specifically was addressing?
KBCA said something about Dr. Gant speaking for the board, which Mr. Pruitt's recommendation was that we not say that. So it's been amended to address the legal concerns. I can revisit the full thing if you want me to. Let's see. KBCA now reads, the superintendent or a designee will be the press liaison person for coordinating the release of information concerning the school system and actions of the board. That is all KBCA says now. It says nothing about what the board president is allowed to or not allowed to do.
So then I'm confused by that, but I think I'll wait until we have another conversation about communication. Because the superintendent is the employee of the board, right? And so this I thought specifically was board communication. Did I miss something on that?
I think, Linda, originally KBCA had a sentence about the board president's ability to talk to the press and only the board president. And so we removed that sentence. So now the norm is possible to have the way we wrote the norm. We've removed the sentence that prohibited anyone from speaking to the media besides the board president.
So what I'm hearing in this rereading is that the superintendent is the official spokesperson for the board?
For the school system. And
for the school system, but not the board.
The sentence reads, the superintendent or a designee will be the press liaison person for coordinating the release of information concerning the school system and actions of the board.
How would that have played out in our handling of this affair with the former superintendent? I'm not sure I understand that. I thought that there was a distinction between the board's action as the governing body and then the school superintendent as the CEO of the district.
Is Mr. Pruitt available? I know that there was a legal argument that we made back when we revised KBCA.
Well, she doesn't have any, I understand that the president doesn't have any authority other than what the board gives her. Correct. In terms of a vote, in terms of speaking for the board or on behalf of the board. But in terms of things being addressed from the community to the board, why would we have a board president if they couldn't address those things? I'm just not sure how we reconcile that. I don't know how you have your employees speak on behalf of the board. It's just something I might have to get used to.
The board acts the way it's doing right now. And, as you know, from the code of ethics for local board members, no individual board member has any power. The power of the board is as a group acting by majority vote. So that's why the prior language was inappropriate.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to be clear that prior language, I thought was simply stating that there is a spokesperson for the board, right? But we're saying we don't have one other than the superintendent?
Or designee.
I don't understand that or designee piece of that. So you're going to have to help me understand how the superintendent would be able to designate someone to speak on behalf of the board if the president doesn't have that authority or that power.
Okay, so I'm going to recommend then with this particular one that we can take it back. Yeah, I mean, like in essence, what it sounds like what we're asking is if that policy is in conflict with the norm. I don't see them in conflict with each other necessarily. I just see the norm just being a bit more specific as far as the role of the president. But I don't know that we'll resolve that tonight. So I do think we need to make a decision. Either we discuss this later, we accept the norm as it is, we revisit the norm at some point. We perhaps revisit the norm alongside the policy. But we...
is the purpose of the norm, if I may, I'm sorry, is the purpose of the norm to give board members the authority to speak to the press?
No.
I think the purpose of the norm is to specify, like, be more specific about board behavior. And so I don't see, I mean, and I'm one person, but I don't see the policy is necessarily in conflict with that, but others may feel differently.
You know, statement number one is very clear to me. I understand that. I don't have any question about that. And the second statement, on behalf of the entire board, the board president, vice president, or designee will notify the superintendent, or if applicable, the second person in command, and then respond with a statement that reflects the opinion of the majority of the board. It seems to be in conflict with the opening statement, but okay. That's my confusion on that.
I think I'm remembering part of the conversation. I mean, there's really only two times that the board would be taking action independent of the superintendent, and that is if you're hiring a superintendent or terminating a superintendent, and,
exactly.
and you would authorize your president or whomever you wanted to speak for the board if you wanted someone to make a public statement about those events.
Okay, great. That adds additional clarity for me.
Okay. Dr. Knox?
I just wanted some clarity with regard to if a board member speaks to the media. My understanding, let's see, sorry, I had it up and then I got rid of it. My understanding is that permission is not needed. What the norm says is if the media requests an individual opinion from a board member, the board member should indicate that this is their opinion and it is not on behalf of the board. Is that correct?
It's always been that way.
Okay, well, I think there's some confusion on email, but anyway, I just wanted to make sure that that's the requirement. Thank you.
What happened to the policy that the president was the only person that was authorized to speak to the media? What happened to that board policy?
That's KBCA, is that right?
Yeah, it's still in existence.
No, they've changed it.
It's
That's
been
been
revoked
changed.
because it was illegal.
So what I'm hearing now, you're gonna have multiple people speaking to the media.
Charles, if I could intercede, if you don't mind. Because
Go ahead.
I gave the most recent example. I think it's important that we make it very clear when we are that we're speaking as an individual, as one of 9. What we're trying to address is that if someone wants the official position of the board on a certain action that was taken or not taken, then that would come from the board officers.
I think that comes from the board taking action, and then that one is the one that we would be relaying to the superintendent, because it would have been an actual board action to render that opinion. So that part, I'm trying to keep clear in my mind. So it wouldn't just be the officer making a statement, it would be the board actually acting on something to create the board's position that can then be relayed by the superintendent or designee.
I feel compelled to say this. 16 years that I've served on this board, all of my training through GSBA, all of the NSBA conferences that I've attended, and going back, like I said, training, that a board member just can't speak individually. You'll say that, but there's no credence behind that.
Mr. Worthy, what's different is that 2 or 3 years ago, I think the statute is OCGA 3681-1. I was about to look that up, but the General Assembly passed a statute that Dr. Yeager's alluding to that says you cannot have a policy that restricts board members from speaking on their own, on their opinions. So, and I'll look it up and read that again out loud here, but that's the change.
Okay, and that statute was passed when, Mike?
Give me a second and I'll tell you.
All righty.
All right.
Okay, let me come back to it, because it was 2 or 3 years ago. I'll find it and come back to you.
That's okay. Fine with me, but let me say this. I've also been told the 16 years I served on this board, and even the 9 years that I served as a principal, when you speak to the media and you say something that perhaps that you shouldn't have said, then of course you're on your own. That you, as a board member, you only covered when you are sitting in a legal constituted meeting. Now that has not changed, but I just felt compelled to say that. That's not to try to put fear in anyone, but that's what the law states.
So it was 2016, it's 3680-1. I was one number off. And it says a local board of education shall not adopt or follow any code of ethics which prevents the members of such board from discussing freely the policies and actions of such board outside of a board meeting. This code section shall not apply to any matter or matters discussed in executive session as defined in, and it gives the code section, or which are exempt from disclosure under the Open Records Act.
And that was passed in 2016. What is the code section on that one, Mike?
Yes, sir, 2016, and it's 36-80-1.
36-80-1. Okay, thank you.
And at least according to the policy manual, the KCBA BCA had not been revised since 1983. So that's why it needed to be updated.
Wow. All right, so that's a long time. We are, if I may move us forward, right now, what I hear is that we have our 3 norms. I did make some suggestions under social media, under the communication norm. I felt that there were some concerns that I had, but I didn't see any other comments or concerns. So of course, I'm happy to defer to whatever the board thinks as well. And if there are not any concerns, then I would open the floor at the very least for a motion to approve the norms that we've worked on. Dr. Dykeman also included in that document that she shared last week, other norms for, let's see, was it 3 other areas? I know strategic planning, was it roles and responsibilities, and governance, roles and responsibilities, self-assessment, and strategic planning. And those seem pretty simple. So I feel that they're in a place where we can accept them. I think they're good enough. Again, my only concern was with the social media. but that was the only feedback that I saw. So was there any other feedback before we move forward with adopting these norms?
I'm pleased with what Mike said. Our attorney has given some clarity on that, so I'm okay with that.
Dr. Gant, would your concerns about the social media be fixed quickly, or do we need to revisit that discussion?
I don't know if they would be fixed quickly. I do think it warrants further discussion, perhaps like when we have time, you know, like where we're actually reviewing our norms. But as I listed in, go back to.
Yes, I didn't see your comments.
Yeah, I don't see them either. I'm sorry.
They're on the Google Doc, but not necessarily the PDF that's in Board Docs.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a Google Doc that Dr. Dykeman shared with us where we said put like any comments that we had. And I just wrote that, and I can just read them if you're not in there, but.
I can send the link again in case you don't have it.
Okay, it was just really related to number 5, people may use their personal social media platform to engage in personal and political issues, but number 5 says that we would not engage with the public on controversial topics on social media. That to me does not sound good. And then there was number 8 said, be mindful on posting about politics. And I think, you know, I couldn't quite tell if we were talking about, you know, on our district Facebook pages, social media, or our personal social media. But I do think there is a way in which a lot of issues, political issues, are personal to individuals. And so to restrict individuals from being able to post or engage on social media, I just thought this went a bit too far in some areas. But again, I think that was the gist of what I said.
Yeah, I mean, these were just taken mostly from the GSBA sample norms. We didn't get a chance to actually talk about this part of the norm. This was the one section within communications that we didn't get to. So if we wanted to spend more time on this part at another time, we could just pull the social media part off.
I would make that motion.
Yeah, and most definitely, I would second that motion. Let me tell you the reason why I'm sitting here thinking. I believe now, but I have to do some research on this or contact Angela Palm. I believe that there was a bill introduced in the last General Assembly in terms of board members posting various things on social media. But I can't recall that bill number. But like I said, I gotta have to do some research on that. But I'm almost sure that happened. So you make the motion, Greg. I will second it.
Can I make a friendly amendment to that motion that hasn't been made yet?
You said friendly, yes.
Can we just use can we keep the first 4 so we have something?
What are the first 4 again?
The first 4 is to post accurate information, notify the audience if applicable that the information is being shared and does not serve as a statement on behalf of the board. That seems relevant. Only utilize social media in a manner that adheres to all board policies, procedures, and regulations. Of course, that's relevant.
For me.
And then use social media as a tool to promote positive and important news about the school district. It seems like those 4 are pretty harmless and important. I agree with you, Dr. Gant, that some of the others are a little bit restrictive. You might want to be careful, especially given the previous conversation about not hindering board members from free speech.
I would agree with that if we adopting what we have here with all of the norms that we have with the modification with social media, using those first 4.
Well, having made the motion, I would consider that a friendly amendment.
Do we have a second?
Yes. Are you seconding, Dr. Knox?
Well, actually, Lisa wants it to be stated clearly.
Okay.
Mr.
Greg?
Mr. Davis, can you restate the motion?
Yeah, my motion is that under the norm involving social media, which is listed as a component of communication, that we only pass 1 through 4.
Let me just interject. Mr. Pruitt, do we, because we're actually working live in this document, we can just simply take the remaining numbers from the social media and have a motion to simply adopt the norms that we're going to adopt, right? Like
That
as
would be
revised.
cleaner. That's right.
Okay. All right. And so I guess if people are okay with removing the remaining items under social media, Dr. Dykeman can do that. If they're not, then, let us know.
That's fine with me.
Yep. Fine with me.
Okay, and I'll cut them out, but I'll save them somewhere so that when we come
Yes.
back to a discussion about it, we can have those.
Yes, because we may actually need to come back, and norms review should be a part of our yearly work anyway. So, Mr. Davis, I'll open the floor back up for a motion, but with those revisions in mind, if you could make a motion regarding the norms
I think there
overall.
already is a motion and a second, and then we accepted the friendly and okay, go ahead, John.
No, let's make sure first of all that Lisa knows what the motion is.
Okay. Yeah.
Hey,
What
for the cleanest, can I interject if you don't mind?
Yeah.
Maybe this be cleanest if we could ask Mr. Davis to withdraw his motion. And if there's no objection to that, the board president can declare that withdrawn, and then we can make a new one.
Okay. Mr. Davis?
Yes, I withdraw my motion.
All right. Are there any objections to that? Okay, we'll open the floor back up for a motion, a clean motion.
I make the motion that we adopt the norm on communication that under social media includes 1 through 4 points, and none of the others.
Second.
I'm sorry, Mr. Pruitt, I'm confusing myself. I think we need a motion for all of our norms. Like, I think we're working, right now we're working specifically, but we have a package of norms that we're considering.
Right. So this is the only one being modified. So why don't we go ahead and vote on Mr. Davis's motion and then have a second to adopt all the others.
Okay, all right. So that was a motion by Mr. Davis and a second by, was it Dr. Yeager? Dr. Yeager, okay. Okay. Dr. Thomas, if you would take roll for all in favor.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Miss Davis?
Yes.
Dr. Yeager?
Yes.
Dr. Dykeman?
Yes.
Mr. Worthy?
Yes.
Dr. Gant?
Yes.
Dr. Knox?
Yes.
Dr. Maddox?
Yes.
Okay, so those changes have been made to that particular norm. The floor, or that portion of the norm, the floor is open for taking action on our package of norms that we have before us.
Would this be for those 3 that we discussed with GSBA or all 6 that haven't been adopted yet?
I suggest we take all 6. We can revisit.
I would agree.
Anyway. So that's board meetings, stakeholders, communication, governance roles and responsibilities, self-assessment, and strategic planning.
Now, we already voted on communication. We've
Just
already,
now. You're right.
Okay.
5.
I'm gonna want more work on strategic planning, but that's just me, sorry.
All right, so is there a motion on the floor, or the floor is open for a motion? Can we get a motion?
well, can I, before then, is your concern, Linda, is that we just need to flesh it out more, or is there something there that you have questions about what's written so far?
have questions about that, but I feel like we need to flesh it out more.
Okay.
And again, based on the fact that at this point, it doesn't still feel like we actually have embraced this as the tool, I guess, for how we actually manage and do our work. And that's where I want to get to. And I don't think we get there without the conversation, but if everybody else is very comfortable that they know exactly what we're doing there, then I'm one vote.
I agree with Linda that, I mean, I think the three that we talked about in the meetings are good. And then I think the governance roles and responsibilities one, I think is pretty clear if people feel like it covers everything that they want it to cover. But I do think that the last two, strategic planning and self-assessment, they don't say very much, especially in comparison to the other norms that we have. And we really haven't had a lot of chance to discuss them. So I would agree that those probably need more work.
But do we agree that at least they're a framework for the more work, and we can plan to have more work when we get our new 3 board members in January, and just establish these right now, especially with Cognia in mind, that we have done this work. We've had this conversation.
I'm so sorry, go ahead.
I think I was done. I just said we've had this conversation. We talked about them during how many hours and hours of training.
But we haven't talked about these. And so that's the problem is, you know, if we haven't done our due diligence, then let's just not do something for the sake of a report to Cognia. It won't let us go forward.
Well, part of the issue though is that this information was shared last week.
Right.
And so the document was shared last week, and the request was if there are any suggestions or modifications that we place those there, so that we could either be prepared or at least be making changes as we got to this week. And so, from my perspective, it's about, are these good enough to begin? I don't think those last two, I do think the last two need work, but I also think they are, I think they include enough information for us to move forward with having norms around them. We can talk about norms for 20 hours or 2 hours. And so I wouldn't want to see us at a place where we don't have anything in place when we could. So I'm leaning more towards
But
Dr.
we have
Yeager
policy
there,
in place, do we not? I mean, aren't these norms also reflected in policy? And so I guess that's my concern. The norms are simply how we're going to implement this policy. So we have policy that would guide us in doing these things. And the norms are saying, okay, we've actually spent time on these and understand how we're going to do these things. So that's my holdback on that. And that's where I stand. So that's okay. If everybody else is comfortable with that, I think you have enough people to carry that vote.
Okay, well, I'm going to open the floor for whatever the motion. Mr. Davis, make your comment, and then the floor is open for a motion.
I was going to call the question. I move that we accept these norms. We've already accepted the communication norm, and I make a recommendation that we adopt the other norms with the understanding that they will be a work in progress.
I second.
And just to help Ms. Palmer to clarify, the norms you're adopting now that the motion is to adopt are the ones titled board meetings, stakeholder concerns, governance roles and responsibilities, self-assessment, and strategic planning.
Correct.
Okay.
Did you say communication, Mr. Pruitt?
I did not, because you already voted on that.
We already did that.
Oh, okay, sorry about that. Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Dr. Thomas, if you would take roll for all in favor.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
No.
Ms. Davis?
No.
Dr. Yeager?
Yes.
Dr. Dykeman?
Yes.
Mr. Worthy?
Yes.
Dr. Gant?
Yes.
Dr. Knox?
Yes.
Dr. Maddox?
Yes.
All right, thank you. That motion carries. And if someone would make note that certainly we'll continue to do work, particularly on those latter two that we have. But this gives us I think, a really solid product right now. We'll move forward with item 13.2. And this is the NWEA map, the action to approve. I know there have been some questions there, and this was pulled off of consent. Dr. Thomas and Mr. Gaskins, is there any additional information you would like to share before we take action?
I don't think so. I know, Mr. Davis, you sent some additional questions. I don't know, if Mr. Gaskins, were you able to reply to the last, well, I don't even know if that was more of a question, Mr. Davis, your last email, or more of a statement?
Yeah, first off, let me clarify something with Mr. Gaskins. Mr. Gaskins, if this, now I with the format of this is a little bit different than we had in the work session, because I had teased out my understanding at the work session that the 20,000 was for the map testing for the gifted. And then there was the 90,000 to continue the map testing for the entire, as we've been using it in the past, because we needed to finish out the third year. And am I misunderstanding something?
There's a little bit of misunderstanding, Mr. Davis. So you are correct with the latter part. We are finishing up our 3-year contract with MAP, which includes that $90,000. We will not use MAP district-wide in future years. We will only use MAP or a norm reference test for a component of gifted eligibility. So the estimate is about $20,000. It might be more, it might be less, but we are required by our board state rule that we give a norm referenced assessment as one of the criteria to be eligible for gifted. In your email, I also said that the Iowa is another norm reference test, formerly known as the ITBS. So based on your question, we're actually looking into Iowa to see if that is a better assessment. But in the future, we will have to give a norm reference test, and the state has currently have approved MAP as one of the assessments we can give, or Iowa as another assessment that we can give.
But I mean, in terms of our obligation to finish out the third year, was that 20,000? Was that part of the 90, and that we just have to do it whether we want to? I mean, because we have to finish out the contract.
The 20,000 is not included. So the part that is included is the 90,000. And that is for all students, including those students that would need a gifted eligibility norm reference assessment.
Okay, the reason I pulled it is because of the gift of the 20,000 gifted. Is that, are we not voting on that tonight? Or are we voting on it on 13.3 or what?
We are not voting on that tonight, Mr. Davis. I think what is probably most appropriate is that we do a gifted presentation in the future, because as I was researching your question, we've also been looking at national norms and local norms to make more of our students eligible. So right now, to be eligible for gifted, you have to take a mental ability assessment, an achievement test, a creativity, and a motivation test. The achievement test, which we're talking about right now, you have to score in the top 90 percentile. But if we look at local norms, we can look at 70% or higher, depending on the highest 10% at the school. So I think what I would like to do is present to the board how we can qualify more students, which would also include what norm reference test that we will use in the future. So the $20,000 is an estimate of about how much we would use. I just wanted to show the decrease in price as we continue to use a norm reference assessment.
Okay, so I just want to be clear, what we're voting on here is, it excludes the 20,000 for the gifted testing right now while we re-examine that topic. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And I do want to just say one thing, because I have spent just of course, what concerns me is on the equity issue, and which we all share. But I also, talking to someone who's an expert professionally in gifted programming, I've also been told that there is a norm reference to creative test. So, a little bit of knowledge is really dangerous. So that's all I'm going to say. But I mean, I think that I applaud you and your staff at looking at, examining the gifted program and seeing what we can do to, expand the opportunities for more of our students who may qualify but may have been excluded, simply because of the vehicle that we chose, not having to. But anyway, thank you.
And just to clarify, Mr. Davis, we do give the creativity assessment for eligibility for gifted. We actually we have 4 criteria, which includes creativity, which we score at the school level, motivation, where we score at the school level, and students have to qualify or meet the requirement for 3 of the 4 of those assessments. So we do give the creativity as well.
Okay. I had just been understanding that this was actually a norm. It's a referenced creativity test. But anyway, I'll leave that to the experts. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you for your work.
Mr. Gaskin,
Yes, sir.
You mentioned the hour test of basic skills. I do believe it's coming back. This school district and many school districts, well, probably all of the school districts across this state, which was 180, used to administer that test. And all of a sudden, well, you know how things would change. But the little bit that I have heard and read about, I believe that our test of basic skills would be coming back.
Yes, sir. It's no longer called the Iowa Test of Basic Skills. They just now call it the Iowa.
Didn't know that.
Yes, sir. So schools across the district, they are using the Iowa. The difference between the Iowa and MAP is the Iowa just assesses 1 time in the year, and the MAP assesses 3 times in the year and also predicts growth. But the Iowa is an updated version with different questions and assessment items. And so they now have dropped the ITBS moniker and call it the Iowa.
So they have enhanced it. Okay, thank you.
And you can take it online.
Great.
I have already emailed Ms. Palmer and Mr. Gaskins to put a gifted presentation on our January work session.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas.
I will move to approve the NWEA MAP item that is on our agenda, 13.2.
Second.
All right. Mr. Davis made a motion. Mr. Worthy was the second. We've had discussion, but just for the record, is there any follow-up discussion? All right, Dr. Thomas, if you would take roll for us. You're on mute, Dr. Thomas.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Stevens,
Yes.
Ms. Davis,
Yes.
Dr. Yeager,
Yes.
Dr. Dykeman,
Yes.
Mr. Worthy,
Yes.
Dr. Gant,
Yes.
Dr. Knox,
Yes.
Dr. Maddox.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. So that motion passes, approving the NWEA map. We'll move forward with item 13.3. And this is the annual renewal of the ECRA group data dashboard and local growth model. I think this one also had some questions. And so are there any additional updates or points of discussion or questions?
I do not have any additional updates. I do understand the concerns. Dr. Knox and I've had some conversation regarding this. This was one of the items that we initially had planned to remove from our contract list. It was a 3-year contract, and there were some issues with getting what was needed to this company to remove it in time. But this, excuse me, is the end of our 3-year contract with them, and we do not anticipate renewing it now that we're out of the 3-year contract. But I don't know, Dr. Knox, if you have additional questions that we may be able to answer, or if anyone else has questions for us around this product.
Well, I'll start at least. And I'm not sure I really have any questions. I think it's good for the public to know kind of how this transpired. And so we approved it. I haven't done all the research on that, but we approved it initially, and then we renewed it on May 9th of 2019. And then, as I understand it, Dr. Thomas, there were plans to cancel it, but then COVID hit and everything was crazy, and the deadline was missed. So my concern is that when I asked questions a long time ago, before you were ever interim superintendent, when I asked questions about it, there was hesitancy really in talking about it, and so the hesitancy gave me some questions, as did the state of the dashboard at that time. And we've since moved forward. We have a different dashboard not provided by these folks, and that's not really what we're talking about with the expenditure of the last money. And we're going to have to spend it anyway because we missed the deadline during
a 2-week delay, right? And they would not let us out. You're right.
Right, exactly. So what I wanted to say, if just a short comment, as I am about to leave the board in another month and a half, I would just exhort the continuing board members and the new board members to be vigilant about external contracts. Just because I think that in this case, it's my impression that we probably ended up spending close to $200,000 for not a lot of return. Now, hopefully, the last part of it, we will get our money's worth, or maybe even more. So I don't want to vote against it. This is kind of almost a last will and testament. And for the new board members, or the ones that will be new, I'm just putting in the chat the link to that discussion back in May. But that's so no other questions, just a little reminder to be vigilant. Thank you.
Thank you. Totally understandable.
And I have a question. In terms of the performance on the individual, I guess, tracking of students' performance and where they are, do we have another tool that is going to do that, to give us an assessment of every individual student's performance and progress?
We do have that tool, Ms. Davis. It is used with iReady. It's our diagnostic assessment. I believe I shared with the board, I don't know if I did or not, the most recent diagnostic scores from iReady. Is that something that you all received?
I do not remember.
Okay, so I can go back. We have just completed a slide deck, and I'll add it to the board update for tomorrow. So we have the most recent diagnostic assessments that show where our students are as it relates to on level and below level from K-8. We also gave that assessment at our high school. The high school scores are a little less reliable. And I think we talked about that a little at our previous board meeting, but we have that information and we will take that assessment 3 times a year. It is a predictor for how students will do on the end of grade assessment as well as our end of course assessment. And I will share that data with our board as soon as it's available. But we do have the beginning of the year data that I will add to the board update tomorrow.
Thank you. And I'll tell you what my interest in this particular tool was simply that prior to that, I don't think we had a tool that would let us see individuals' performance over time. And so we were relying on, in terms of reporting out to the community and the public about how our schools were doing, we were looking at the 3rd and 5th and 8th grade assessments, but we weren't tracking individual students from the first through K through 12, at least as my understanding, to see how they were progressing over time to help us do a better job of determining where students were. So if you're telling me that we have that in another tool or another application, I would love to see that. And just as an aside, I did manage to jump on another seminar. I'm afraid I'm seminared out, but I saw another tool today that does a similar type tracking, and it brought in the entire, every aspect of that student's experience in the school district. And so I'll share that link with you, Dr. Thomas, if you want to share it with your staff.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, we'll move forward and open the floor. Thank you for the update or the reminder, Dr. Thomas, as far as what happened with that particular contract and Dr. Knox and Ms. Davis. It is unfortunate that, particularly during these times, that they would not be flexible. So I think that has,
Yes.
I mean, I think that's telling.
And really, like right at 2 weeks, Dr. Gant, and it was COVID and people were not working from the office, and it was less than 14 days. But efforts were made by Miss Veronica Jackson to get us out of it.
Yeah.
Successful, unfortunately.
All right. Well, we'll move forward. The floor is open for a motion.
I move that we approve the renewal for ECRA group data through the end of the this contract period.
Second.
All right. Ms. Davis made a motion. Mr. Davis for the second. Just for the record, any other discussion? Dr. Thomas, if you would take roll.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Dr. Yeager?
Yes.
Dr. Dykeman?
Yes.
Mr. Worthy?
Yes.
Dr. Gant?
Yes.
Dr. Knox?
Yes.
Dr. Maddox?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, great. That motion passes. Before we move forward to adjournment, there was one quick thing that actually I forgot and Mr. Davis forgot, but I know that we've seen it in our communications, and that is that the Government Relations Committee will be having a TAD conversation where commissioners and the mayor, wait, I think, well, is it the mayor, Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Okay, we'll be there. So please be sure to check your emails for notifications about that. And I'll also place it under the president's report as well. And you can reach out to the Government Relations Committee, Mr. Davis and Dr. Knox, I think, and Dr. Yeager, I think, and if you have any questions.
Is that something I'm supposed to attend or not?
I would, as chair of the committee, I would like for you to be there for sure. Are you going to also provide us your thoughts, or would you do that maybe after Tuesday?
Either way. So this meeting is when? It's Tuesday?
Tuesday at 4:30. I think you're generally there anyway.
Oh, okay. It's okay. Yes, I have.
It's the Government
I just
Relations
didn't know that
meeting.
was the topic. Okay.
All right, that is the topic.
Okay, you may want to clear with the members of the mayor and commission. If you're going to have council present, they may want to have council present, or at least that would be, that would be the normal courtesy to let them know that.
So
And
okay, so I need to remind them to check into it? I mean, because they're.
Yeah, just let if Mayor Gertz is going to be there, just let Mayor Gertz know so he can choose or not, whatever he wants to do.
Know that we're going to have an attorney there.
Right.
Okay.
And so is this an information meeting, or can you kind of give me a clue as to what we're going to talk about there?
Yes, it is an information meeting.
All right. And Mr. Davis, I think you all will send out the agenda, right? Or have you already sent it out? I remember I saw some communication between you, and Mr. Harris as well.
But the agenda is very sketchy. But yeah, there is an agenda out and it's already posted and the meeting is posted.
All right.
Is this a continuation of what we talked about in the work session?
Insofar as the topics are the same, but it's being presented, it's by, the mayor will be there and commissioners will be there to give their version, since they're voting on the subject. Just as
They've already voted and passed it on, so.
Okay, well, if there are any additional questions, if I may, I just wanted to be sure the announcement was made. So Mr. Davis, if you can maybe send out some additional context to the board, if you can fill in some context. If there are some additional questions, if you could reach out to Mr. Davis to answer those questions. I know this is not a formal agenda item, so I don't want to get us too far down a discussion, but I just wanted to make note because it was something that I forgot to mention in the president's report, and then that wasn't mentioned in the government relations report either. Ms. Davis, would you feel okay reaching out to Mr. Davis to answer additional questions that you have?
I just want to make sure it's not a board meeting. It's just a committee meeting. Is that right?
it's the government relation, it's the
Committee meeting. Okay. I don't have to be there then. I'm good.
No, it's a committee meeting. So yeah, it's optional. Right, but I do think it's important so that we can make informed decisions. All right, we'll move forward with item number 14, which is adjournment.
I so move.
Second.
I waited. Nobody did.
Thank you, Ms. Davis, for the motion to adjourn. That was Dr. Maddox.